the past 4 years, I've been making games. The first one I ever made looked like this. If you compare it to my newest game, it looks very different, but look closer. Both are top-down shooter games with inventory systems where you try to fight off monsters. Fundamentally, the games are the same. My newer one is just an upgrade. But how did I actually go from making games like this to ones like this? It all started when I was a kid, playing PS3 games with my dad. It was the best thing in the whole world. Worms and Super Stardust was basically the highlight of my entire day. The only thing was, I had all these ideas for what could be put into them. New weapons or power-ups, and no way to implement it. Luckily, one day at school, my class was given a whole bunch of computers, and we went to a little website called Hour of Code. It was basically a super limited way to control little characters using lines of visual code. This made me realize that games didn't just pop into existence, people actually had to make them. That meant I could make my very own games. So I got my dad to help me out, and he installed this really small game engine. I don't know if you've heard of it, it's called Godot.
Godot.
Well, I don't know exactly what happened, but I remember finding it exceedingly confusing. Basically, my puny brain saw it as having to memorize an alien language, and I lost all motivation to work in it. Luckily, instead of just giving up on game dev, I bumped into a book called Scratch for Beginners. I read it, and the main thing I got was that coding is super easy, and all I have to do is go to this magical website called Scratch. After copying a few of the games in the book, I made my first game, a zombie shooter. I remember being really proud of it and thinking it was really complex since I had 3 whole guns. But that's when I realized my first lesson. Even super simple code starts to become convoluted if you don't keep it organized. The code in that game was special, to say the least. And I didn't have the skill or patience to try to make it better. So instead, I just jumped from one tiny Scratch game to another. I probably have over 50 incomplete projects, spending about a year just learning the basics of code. You might think that visual scripting in Scratch wouldn't really translate over to coding with a computer language. The thing is, either way, you're still learning how to talk to a computer. The hardest skill to learn isn't speaking Python or C or whatever, it's logic. Unless you're trying to learn binary code, in which case, yeah, that's gonna take a while. After a while of Scratch, I thought I was ready for the real deal. I was getting kind of bored, and Scratch is pretty limited in what you can do. It doesn't have a physics system, collision is a total nightmare, and it didn't even have a proper camera. So I went to the most trustworthy source of game dev information, Brackeys, and he told me the only thing I should switch to is Unity. It's a really tough transition to go from Scratch to Unity, but I was able to keep up for about 10 minutes. Then there was one singular problem and the game wouldn't run. I tried to look in the comments to see what I could do, but there was nothing there that said I could fix it. I had no clue how to navigate Unity, much less solve problems. So I was just overall confused and frustrated. Game dev wasn't as fun as it first seemed like it was supposed to be. I thought it was going to be mostly sunshine and rainbows.
Rainbows, everything that's
where you tell the computer to do something and it just worked. I thought it'd take maybe a few months and I'd have my dream game ready to go. But I wasn't even able to copy and paste from a tutorial. Every time I went to my computer, I'd see Unity, but instead of trying to learn, I just procrastinated. I watched YouTube or played Minecraft or did anything that I could do to not open Unity. Over the course of almost an entire year, I didn't really do anything I can look back on and be proud of. The only problem is, my brain does not like being idle. Playing Minecraft got old fast, and YouTube was really unfulfilling to watch after a while. I think I have to be making something, or else I start to go insane. And so that's why one day, I finally decided to reopen Unity. This time, I had a different mindset. I watched a tutorial and tried to understand it. If I hit a problem, I'd either look it up or find a solution in the comments. If something really bad happened, I could always rewatch the part of the tutorial and just remake the whole script. It was tedious, and it wasn't necessarily what my younger self would have wanted to do, but that's okay. Life isn't really meant to be easy, especially if you're going into game dev. I finally got through the first tutorial and the game worked. It was pretty boring to play, but it worked. I quickly switched to another, more complicated Brackeys tutorial and learned a bunch more about programming, navigating in Unity. It started to make a lot more sense. A bunch of tutorials later, and I was itching to make a game of my own, when Brackeys released a new game jam. It was the perfect timing, and the theme was, let there be chaos. So I made a platformer where you can't jump. I'd say it definitely fits the theme, but that wasn't really the important part. The important part was I'd finally made a game on my own in Unity. Something I'd been trying to do for years was complete. Now I need to get better and better so I could eventually make something that would be actually somewhat fun. After this, I made some jam games, all of which were pretty bad, but Every single game taught me something about how to program, problem solving, and how to make somewhat good ideas. I thought, well, now I'm basically an expert, so I should start making some sweet cash. And the only place I could find to do that without putting in a credit card was Fiverr. So the first guy I worked with was quite strange. Looking back, I think he's probably taking what I made and selling it to someone else for more money. Honestly, it was really annoying working for him, and all I got out of it was $5. But luckily, the second guy I worked with was Clawwave, and he was cool. I made him a mobile game that probably wasn't worth, but I'm not complaining. It's interesting that the best customers pay more than the worst ones. Anyway, I got kicked off of Fiverr because I didn't want to give them my passport. All the money I'd gotten on Fiverr was in Fiverr dollars. I might have kinda forgotten to take the money out, since, I mean, it was only $bucks anyway. So, sorry Clawwave if you're watching this, but your money might kinda be gone now. Anyway, after that whole Fiverr debacle, I decided I finally wanted to make an amazing game. So I got a few friends to help me, and for around 3 months we worked on a 2.5D roguelike called Deep Below. I've already made a few videos about it, but basically it didn't turn out to be a super fun game. It had potential, but I just didn't want to deal with the code and 3D problems, so instead I decided to revert to making a good old-fashioned 2D game. I just went one step at a time, not planning to make anything in particular, except to make sure it was as fun as possible for you guys. And now, to me at least, game dev isn't about short-term fun. It's not about ending up with a dream game tailored just for me, or anything like that. It's simply about the process of making something new. Something that never existed before I made it. To me, that's what game dev is all about. See ya.